Hi there, my name's John Stevens, pastor of Zion Lutheran Church in Oregon City, Oregon, and we're part of the ELCA, and welcome to Dollar Store Children's Sermons, where we take a look at the lectionary text, tie into an item from the Dollar Tree. This is for the fifth Sunday after Pentecost, and we're looking at the gospel lesson. But first of all, I am not in Oregon City, I am in Dillon, Montana, visiting family over the 4th of July, but I get back late on the 6th on Saturday, and I wanted to make sure that I had something for Monday morning, so here we are. I'm recording this in Big Sky Country. And we're looking at the gospel lesson and for the Dollar Store Children's Sermon, and it is the Good Samaritan story where the lawyer and Jesus are talking, and it's all about what must I do to inherit eternal life. And we hear the love your neighbor as yourself tack on. Jesus is pulling together the Shema, and a little bit later another command, and we hear this, love your neighbor as yourself. And of course the lawyer can't leave it at that. He wants a description. He wants a definition. All right, Jesus, if you're going to put that out, who is my neighbor? Or who's the neighbor? And Jesus says, let me tell you a story. And I always figure that when Jesus answers you by saying, let me tell you a story, you know you've stumbled onto something. So, the item I'm using, this is a very familiar story, and it's all about how our idea of a neighbor expands. I mean, Jesus takes this, and if we think just our friends, if we think the people that are in our pews, if we think those who we like are our neighbors, Jesus has another story for us, or we have another thing coming. Jesus expands that. You can probably hear the train in the background, perhaps. I am in the backyard. So anyway, that's just if you hear that, that's what it is. But so in that story where Jesus says, where the lawyer asks, who is my neighbor? And Jesus tells a story about the Samaritan. We've got the well-known people, the priest and the Levite, and we've got and then we have the Samaritan, and the Samaritan's the one that helps, and the Samaritan is not looked very kindly upon to the lawyer who's hearing this story. When we think about this, we can then expand that about who's our neighbor. Is it our neighbor across the street that we like? Is it the neighbor on the other side that we don't? Is it the person that is crossing our border? Is it you fill in the blank. I mean, the fact is that they're all our neighbors, and we are called as Christians to love them. So the item I'm using, there's a couple items, but and they're the same theme, but one is from the Dollar Tree, and that is, what am I? And it's a headband where you put a card on here, and the idea is that you're trying to guess who you are. So you put a card, and if it says, I'm a cat, and the people around you it's on the charades, they're giving you clues about who you are. So there's that. There's also a game on the phones, the App Store, that you can get. It's called Heads Up. And it's another way of, you put it up here, and it's the idea of guessing. You could do it at charades, you could make 3x5 cards. It's all that idea when you're holding that up. Who am I? Who am I? And that's to lead to ask that question, who is my neighbor? And so ultimately, maybe you have a card made up where it says, I'm your neighbor. So who am I? And it says neighbor. And now with the little kids, you might have an adult helper read, or you might have a picture of something, but that way of looking at question. You could even play the game of charades, guess who I am, and then ultimately it leads to my neighbor. You are my neighbor. I am your neighbor, and we belong to each other. So that's the direction I'm going. I hope it can be hope it can be a springboard for your own children's sermon. And as always, thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have a fantastic week.